can you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
Oh my goodness, the old victim mindset. Can't do the victim mindset. You in your office today. Look at you. Uh-oh, we're frozen. Today's been our day of freezing. I don't know what it is. They're mowing outside my office today, so maybe that's what it is. It's do we have an unstable internet connection?
See Devon's little thing spinning and spinning. I'm hoping she's going to be in a minute.
Oh Lord, have we started this? This is so crazy. Are you there? Do we have you? Oh Lord, help us. Y'all, we trying it. We trying it. They're mowing outside my office today, and that always causes an issue. Let me see. Happy Wednesday, Elizabeth. Yeah, it is. It's weird. The internet is weird all over today, so it's crazy.
Everybody, I don't know if you guys can see me or not. I'm having a hard time connecting Devon, and she just sent me a message. It's like it was a little wonky. So, can you hear
Yeah.
me? They're gone again. What is happening?
It's crazy today. It is crazy today. Why don't
I've got my
you
glasses
try?
on, but I'm on my phone today, so everything is teeny up like a. I'm going like, what does that say? I think Elizabeth said she's also having some internet issues today. And I was sure because this is housed out of Devon's wheelhouse, if you guys can actually hear me or not, or if Devon can even hear me. It says that the show is up and going. Can you hear me again?
That's crazy.
Now.
Okay. This is our day today. This is attachment. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a song that really sets up what we're doing. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Well, you sound like you're underwater. It sounds really robotic. Isn't that crazy?
You can see and hear you.
Oh my gosh. I want you to tell the story about your house, the house that you grew up in. Hello, Tim Bradley, Country Buck Tim. I'm so glad to see you there. All our people are here. And this is crazy. We have never had this happen.
It's crazy. You know what?
Never had this. Okay. You sound a little robotic to me, but we're going to try this. I want you to tell the story of your house, the house that you grew up in, and you and Donna went back to see it, and it was on Facebook. But this is the way we're going to start a conversation with attachment.
Okay. I just unplugged my earphones or headbuds. Is that better?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, then I won't be. I only wear them because I'm afraid you're going to get kickback. So if that's better, then that's good.
We're going to start over, y'all.
Hello, Devon. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Oh my gosh. Well, I thought, well, maybe it's because they're mowing outside. I don't know. It's been crazy weather and unstable internet everywhere today. It's okay. Tim says lots better. So we're hearing you now. Girlfriend, you posted on Facebook about you and Donna, your aunt.
Mm-hmm.
the two of you grew well, you're like the same, you're very similar in age, and so you kind of grew up more like sisters, and you went back to the house that you grew up in. Tell me about that, because we're going to kick off our conversation on attachments.
Well, that house was sold in 85. It was a house that she grew up in with my grandparents, their daughter, and I grew up in that house on weekends and holidays. So we went back a year ago, visited, we're kind of and we went and we saw it, and we knew that it was going to be demolished at some point.
Okay. She got completely knocked off the internet. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start the story, and we're going to try this way. Hopefully she can come back into the studio, and we'll try this again. She and Donna went back to the house that they grew up in, both led to this thing. And the person who owned it currently had passed away and had willed it to the person across the street. So they just went over, knocked on the door, said, look, we grew up here. Can we go see it? And so the person said yes. And I'm at the part of the story, Teri, where I said,
yes,
you had knocked on the door across the street to the person who currently owned the house and said, can we see it? And you walked in.
Yes. Yes. And this was last year. And so we walked in, and it was as though I was 8 years old again. And Donna and I were both overcome with emotion. Of course, the person that was still living or that had just passed there, their belongings were still there, but it was the same linoleum, the same niches in the door framing, the same old gas fireplace thingy that they had. And all the memories and all the emotions flooded back. It was like we were still children, but it was also bittersweet because there was a very clear presence that time had in fact moved on. But, we walked through a kitchen. We were attached to those cabinets because my grandfather made them.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. Yeah.
We were attached to the shed because that's where he worked. We were attached to a lot of things in that house. And so, because all of our memories, of not all of our memories, but a large chunk of our really beautiful memories from childhood resided in that cradle on Tennessee Avenue.
Well, you made a deal with the person who owns the house to get in contact with you before a change was made to that lot and to the house. Now, here's where the heartbreak comes in.
Yes. We had asked that before it was sold or demolished, once she got the woman's possessions out, if we could come back and see it. And she had said, absolutely, yes, you can absolutely do that. We did not get that call. So our next nudge to go by the house resulted in us seeing a bulldozer there, and the lot was empty and the house was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So Donna actually called me and said, all I got was the picture. And then she called me immediately. And I hadn't yet gotten the picture through my phone. And so I answered the phone. And she said, did you get the picture? And then it came through, and I was just speechless. And if you saw the pictures on Facebook, there was actually one picture that I took. I was sitting in the bedroom looking out the window in my yard, and I was just overrun with emotion. And that was the moment that I was just like, holy cow. Like that house that, to coin the Miranda Lambert phrase, whatever, that raised me or built me or
The
whatever.
house that built me, yeah.
Yeah, it was gone.
Wow.
And of course we have memories, and and everybody will say, oh, well, you still got the memories, and we do. But that house was a loss. That's a transition. That's something that you have to adjust to. We knew it was coming, but to not get to say goodbye to something that birthed you and raised you. I mean, that's the only house Donna ever lived in. It's the only house I ever knew my grandparents to live in.
What's really big about this story, it brings up attachments and why we get
Absolutely.
attached to things and why a lack of closure is so heartbreaking. Mark is joining us. We haven't seen you in a while, Mark. Marty said that we're having solar flares today and it's affecting the internet. Elizabeth says that would be a crushing feeling, I think.
Yeah.
You were able to go and get some things. You like were able to dig up some like flower bulbs or things.
I did. I did. It was really interesting because when I pulled up, because Donna had been there the day before, and then I was doing some stuff that next morning, and I thought I'm going to go by, and so I drove by, and the video of me driving down the road is there, and I stopped the car, and I just was in shock. It was as though, well, I don't want to compare it to a natural disaster, but it's that same shock that when you have a place that is so comfortable to you, even if you haven't been there in forever, and then so many memories are housed there, and then it's just gone. So I got out of the car and I looked, and the irises that used to be at the front of her house that had moved out by the mailbox were just smashed, and just the bulldozer had just buried them in the rubble and the dirt. There was no rubble there. It was all gone. But I was forward thinking. I knew she had irises there. So I had taken a couple of boxes and my little shovels, and I just started unearthing them. And I put them in a box, and then I went to where there was another section of them that were not quite as destroyed, and I unearthed those. And then as I stood there, I thought to myself, the neighbors are going to think I'm crazy because here's this woman at 8 o'clock in the morning standing out in an empty lot in the middle of what they now call the Nations, which I will never call the Nations. It's always going to be West Nashville to me because that's what it was and what it is in my heart. So yeah, I found remnants of little tiny pieces of wood. I found a little chip of the linoleum out of the kitchen, and it was actually shaped like a heart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I found a couple of little pieces of the window pane. And then I also dug around and found some of the foundation, like small pieces of it, the size of a softball or something. And I brought them home. And I'm going to actually, I hope Donna's not listening. I'm going to gift them to her in some kind of way, because that is truly the walls, the windows, the foundation, the roof that,
Raised her.
Absolutely.
Wendy said, I keep watching my grandmother's house on Dakota, and I fear the same thing. You will find joy in the small things you got. I hate it turned out this way. Mark asked, was it a tornado? No, Mark. Nashville is going through this thing where people are buying up these areas. They're doing a tear down on the lot and building another house, a tall, skinny, or something that they can sell for a lot of money.
It will definitely be a tall, skinny, because that's what's come up the road. So that it's next in line to be a tall, skinny. And, I was thinking as I was driving home from there that day, it's so, our attachments to things, not only do we attach to things easily, sometimes we have trouble detaching from them.
Yeah. And I in the intro to this, I talked about we always think attachment to people, but we get attached to places, locations. We get attached to a job, even an uncomfortable job. We get attached to things, our status quo. We hate change sometimes so much because change is the unknown, the inevitable unknown. And so it's scary. When does holding on to attachment become detrimental?
When it affects your daily life. When it affects your ability to make decisions that are actually in the benefit of your health and overall well-being. Like if you're, and I will say this, and I don't want to leave people thinking that this house was like, the Magic Kingdom. It was not. It was a house that was built in the 30s.
and it probably had only had the repairs done that my grandfather did to it, but it did not matter. That it was that if you had moved into that house today, you would have had to have restructured all of it. You would have had to gutted everything. If you were living in that house today, um, would it be safe? Yeah, it'd be safe. But, we wouldn't be able to hang on to that house and live in it as is, because it would fall down around you at some point. And that's an unhealthy attachment. An attachment in a relationship when you're being neglected or abused. It's an unhealthy attachment.
Mhm.
An attachment to a job that you don't want to leave because you love the people, but your management or your coworkers or whomever it is overworking you or underpaying you or abusing or neglecting you in some way. Those are unhealthy attachments. When an attachment is filling us up in something that we need, but it's depleting us faster than we're filled up, it's an unhealthy attachment.
How do we go about letting go with grace? How do we let go and move to the next thing? Because I got to tell you, it's really easy to get stuck. For me, I'm just speaking for me, but I know I am not alone in this. I know that
Mhm.
everybody who views this has felt stuck in a situation that they felt like they couldn't get out of.
Well, the first thing is having the self awareness that you're actually attached to something and
Mhm.
you want to move away from it or you want to release it. The second step in that would be um, proactive thinking, like coming up with your game plan. How can you do that?
Mhm.
What is that beneficial to you? This is a little different than having, the house situation, but it's more in line with how do we attach or detach from things that are not healthy attachments. So having a blueprint, putting into motion action steps on a daily basis, and
Yeah.
sometimes multiple times a day. And those action steps may be something as simple as um, not answering a phone call. It may be as simple as, um, I appreciate the invite, but I can't make it. You know, um, Putting things in motion, having a support system. And I'm not talking about just a best friend that you go to that you can commiserate and they're just going to agree with everything you say, but having a support system in place with someone that is a trusted ally to you that can actually
Mm.
give you solid advice. And even sometimes when you don't like that advice, you can respect the fact that they care enough about you that they're going to be honest with you.
Just having that ability to have accountability with someone
Absolutely.
as you move through it, that's important. Mark lost his Marine buddy on Sunday. Mark, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Absolutely.
And he said that he didn't get to say goodbye. They were a little distant with the PTSD that he had experienced, but it was a tough. He was the one who helped me with my drinking problem in the military. When we have those people that we don't get to say goodbye to, those houses we don't get to say goodbye to, not getting to say goodbye and have closure is another part of that not being able to move on, not being able to.
Absolutely. It is definitely a resistance to not being able to move on. It doesn't always stop us from doing that because we live in a world that is continually in motion.
Mhm.
So it's not that we don't move on, it's our attachment to the past that doesn't allow us to effortlessly move on. It's sort of like we're behind the wagon and we're going over all the rocky terrain, and we're just sort of being pulled through life.
There is a symbol that I really love, and it was a meme, it was a symbol, and it said, "There's a reason that windshields are bigger than rear view mirrors." And I love that. I keep reminding myself of that sometimes when I can't let go of something. For me, sometimes I get really stuck in stuff because I remember stuff represents a person, stuff represents who gave it to me stuff. And even if it's something I don't like or haven't used, it's very difficult for me to let it go because that's the person for me. And that's what I've been working through is getting rid of things going, I'm going to call this person instead of holding on to this.
Right, right. Another thing I think we've talked about in a past show was if you're a person that is a collector of different things,
Mhm.
you can, and you find that your mobility is hindered around your home or your office because you've collected a lot of things that are important to you. If you find yourself wanting and being guided or nudged to release those things, you can always take a picture of them,
Ooh,
right,
this is great.
put
Yeah.
it in a photo album, and then underneath that, like sort of like scrapbooking, write the place and the person and that kind of thing. It's not the actual object we're attached to so much as it is the memory.
Mm.
And we use the attachment to the object because, like, for instance, you might have a quilt that somebody, your grandmother gave you, and
Mm.
you don't really ever use the quilt. You've even forgotten that you've got the quilt until you go up in the attic one day and you open up some stuff and there's that quilt. And suddenly we're flooded with emotions. And suddenly we love this quilt. And suddenly this quilt is so important. But it's not the quilt. The quilt is the conduit that stirs the memory, that brings it back to life. And that's
Right.
why, as collectors, people don't like to get rid of stuff because then the memory's gone forever.
Ooh. Elizabeth says, if I change several of the small things, it helps me let go of the big thing I need to detach from. That's a good point too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and there are times when when you realize, and now I'm going to be like really open. Well, I like, not like we aren't. We just lay it all out there. We just tell y'all what we're going through, and you guys relate or you don't, and that's just what it is. Actually, these are my own personal coaching sessions with Teri, and I just let y'all in on it. But it's so funny because last week, or I think it was last week, and you said, "Are you okay? Let's talk about this." And I realized I was going through some depression and some things. And I mentioned it. I said, yeah, Terry's mentioned something to me about, I might be dealing with some depression or whatever. I said, oh, I'm, and two people that same day said, I meant to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah. And what it was, and it was all due to some attachments that I had to something that had happened, to something in the past or whatever. And it was a time of year. It was the time of year I lost my dad. It was the time, it was all this stuff that came into a juggernaut that I wasn't really aware of until people who love me said, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And that the toughest thing for me was my attachment to my daddy's things. I had so many of his things, and I have moved them 3 times. They're in boxes. I don't wanna open them because when I open them, I'm sad.
Sure.
And those are something, and I wasn't even aware of it. And I noticed it, and you guys, I'm just gonna put it out there. I noticed it in the days that I go, "Okay, I don't have enough in me to do my hair. I don't have enough in me to put on makeup. I don't have it in me." And showing up without showing up. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you guys have ever been there and you've experienced that, that might very well be a depression, and a depression linked to attachment.
And that's what we will call a situational. It's a situational depression.
Mhm.
So it may not be that in every waking hour of your day you're empty and you have nothing to give, or that you feel hopeless or helpless. But the thought of going and opening a box that contains your father's possessions that will be weighted with emotion can trigger chemicals in our brain that will put us in a situational depression.
And that can last a few days. It can last,
Mhm.
to say a season doesn't mean necessarily winter, spring, summer, fall, but it can last the season around your father's transition, the season around, if you had if you um, you know, did things on the farm with your dad, or
Mhm.
the season when crops are being planted, if you were active doing things like that with your father, then it will bring up a bittersweet. But many times the weight of the loss will slide us into more of a situational depression.
One of the things that I have found, it's really a crazy thing. There's smell is an olfactory connection, will trigger something. And it was so funny because a lot of my farm stuff I equate with my grandfather, who I was inseparable with, and I miss him every day too. But the smell when my cow Stevie Wonder, my blind steer, when he's eating and he like breathes in my face, it's the
Mm-hmm.
sweetest smell. It's Cows have a real, they, grass and stuff, it's a sweet smell. And it was that smell of being with my grandfather feeding the cows.
Mm-hmm. And they work. Yeah, and they work both ways. They work both ways. Like if you've had an experience when you were younger that wasn't pleasant, those same, smells can trigger you into other chemicals that, leave you feeling more triggered, and not necessarily in a good way, but more in a heavy way. You know, I've got one that's not really a trigger for me. It's just a memory. It's like a memory deposit.
Mhm.
And this is going to sound completely bizarre, but when I was in elementary school, the as soon as I say this, I'm just like, this really is off. But the meatloaf in elementary school taste to me like Ajax or Comet smells. And I know that that is a complete cattywampus thing, but so anytime I smell Ajax, I think automatically, I'm not like, oh my God, meatloaf from school, but it's just like, oh, I remember that cafeteria, and I remember that smell, and I remember that meatloaf. I don't remember
Yeah,
much else about it, but I do remember that. And it's not a bad memory. It's just our
that's how
senses.
memories connect. That's how our senses
Absolutely.
connect them. Elizabeth says, plus I put it on my body. My new TP tattoo symbolized opening my heart to new beginnings and knowing joy again. Is that a Terry Pugh tattoo?
It's not, but I gave her grief about it one day. When she showed it to me, I said, oh, that's my initials. So now she can't look
Oh,
at it.
oh, I know exactly. I know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Barbara says, finding this very interesting. I have so many triggers. I know we all do. Those are attachments. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But our deal is to be aware. And
Yeah.
awareness is our first step. Taking pictures of things and letting them go, being aware that that is a trigger and what all those things are. All when we start untangling the necklace
Mm-hmm.
and getting the knot out of the chain, that's when we start to get free of the things that are holding us back and stopping us. Let's, before we get out of here, because we're going to go a little longer today because we had a little issue at the front, because I want to make sure you get all the juice out of this orange. But let's talk about when we are unhappy, when we don't get closure. How do we deal with not getting closure?
We create our own.
Okay. How we do that?
Well, creating our own closure means there's various ways of doing that. One, people can go through processes of um, letter writing. They can go through processes of just like visiting the space, the lot that the house was on. Um,
Mhm.
Going there, being able to touch the soil, being able to walk. I walked the perimeter of the house, even though the house wasn't there. And I allowed myself to stand in each room and to think, even though there was nothing there. There was an ethereal type house there that I was walking through. And so giving myself closure allowed me to drive away. And was it still weighted? Of course it was. But I'm not going to be sitting here today, tomorrow, and 6 months from now going, oh my God, I can't believe the house is gone. I mean, da, 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 da. No, because there's a closure with that. So creating, first off, knowing what you need to, what's calling you to have closure, or as I say, buttoned it up, like
Mhm.
what is it that you need to have closure around?
Mhm.
Is it a person that is still around that you can have that? If it's not, then is there a letter process that you can do? um, Creating a scrapbook, can give you closure on the things that you're releasing. It's very different from if it's a person versus if it's a tangible object,
Right.
you know, versus if it's someone that like Mark was saying, a friend that transitions and you don't get to say goodbye. He has, I'm sure, and I can't speak for Mark on this, but I would assume that there are um, probably bittersweet memories there around the struggles and the joys that he went
Right.
through with his friend. And so
Right.
leaning on those and cherry picking those precious moments and those gratitudes out of it, they don't take away the fact that you don't have closure, but they do fill you up in a way with a different gratitude or different appreciation. And that offsets, the loss or the lack of.
When I lost my grandparents, I was in a time in my life when I could not get home to the funeral. And there are a lot of people in the last 2 years who have lost people and were not able to go to or even have a celebration of life. We've been in a crazy time. So there are a lot of people with these unanswered feelings of letting go of someone. But I didn't get to say goodbye, but I didn't get to let go. People died in hospital rooms with a FaceTime. It
Yeah.
was awful. So, one of the things that has helped me is literally going in the backyard, going to a place, going to some place that was connected to the two of you or to your family, whatever, and having your own celebration of life, your own funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes I go out and, when my grandfather passed and my grandmother, and now I do it for everybody that I lose. I go sit outside and have the conversation around my fire pit,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And if I do the Native American thing, I take a little bag of tobacco and throw it in the fire and let it go up, or some sage. But um, I let go, but I say to them what I would say at their funeral. I give
Mm-hmm.
my own eulogy for those people. And it is amazing what that will do for you to let you release. So I want to encourage you, if you are holding on to, I didn't get to, if you're holding on to that, or if you don't have the strength to go to the funeral and say those things in front of all those people, that's another thing, is like, I would love to say something, but I can't do that, which is another big deal. Have your own.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what that does.
And remember also that closure is what survivors need. The people who are surviving the person or the place that is left. But we're never without this person. If it is a sweet memory, you're never without it. They're always there. They are. If it's a person, if it's a home, if it's a whatever it is, it is woven within you. It's woven within the fibers of who you are as a person. It's woven into your heart. You're never not going to have them or it or the memories around you. Um, but being able to express your heart transparently and fully is important. And if you
Amen.
find yourself longing for that, reach out to, get the resources and the tools that can allow you to release that and take that weighted blanket off so that you have more space to swim around in the sweet memories.
Mark says the funeral is tomorrow. He can't be there, so he knows what I mean. Yeah. and Elizabeth. Always our empaths who are always watching. I'll be thinking of you tomorrow, Mark, and we will as well.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth says, I talk with my grandfather almost daily. He left almost 30 years ago. Amen. Me too. He still hears everything that goes on in my life. He knows, no doubt in that at all. I couldn't
Absolutely.
agree with you more. Suzanne just joined us. Hi, Suzanne. If you guys are watching in the replay, just let us know that you're here. Leave us a comment. If you have a question, you can leave it. And even after the show, we go back and try to answer some of those questions, or maybe you have a comment that will help other people who are here.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm thrilled that you guys join us each and every week. We are part of Transcending Turbulence on that page. Launch date, you can find it on Instagram. Teri Pugh, tell them how they can find you.
They can find me at terrypugh.com. There's all sorts of gadgets and gadgets that'll connect you directly with me.
We're just out and open. If you want to reach out to me, obviously, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, but just drop me a message, devonode@gmail.com. That's an easy way to get in touch with me. If you guys have a subject matter that you want to bring up for future shows, just let us know, because that's what we do. Otherwise, it's just going to be my counseling session.
I know. It's funny, right? Because just about every show, unless I reach out and go, hey, this has been on my heart, let's talk about this. Just about every show, I get ready to log on. I'm like, what are we talking about today? I did that right before today. I was like, what are we talking about today? Because I had just ended a session and I didn't have time to go to my Facebook page to see what you had posted. So I was like, I don't know what we're talking about, but let's just roll with this.
Let's just roll with this. And it's actually, this was your thing that you posted last week, and I made a note of it. And Barbara, I don't want to go without saying this. Losing my husband has been my hardest to date. Barbara, I just spoke last night to someone who lost his wife. That losing is loss, and grief is huge. Whatever it is, it is hard. And my heart goes out to you, Barbara. That is
absolutely
very, very tough. But we hope that you found something today that has blessed you and given you a nugget of something that you can kind of grasp, and learning to let go. I swear to you, I don't have my tattoo yet, but I'm thinking my thing always goes back to the dandelion, because I want to be more like a dandelion.
Mm-hmm.
Where I can let go, but with everything we let go of, it plants something somewhere.
I use the dandelion in my practice with my clients to represent grief. And the reason that I do that is because the dandelion is seen as a weed by some people and a flower by other people. And it comes up green, and then it comes up with a real cute little yellow flower on it. And then that little yellow flower, if I've got the history on it right, that is it the flower that turns into the little white puffy thing?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So all of that, there's beauty in that. There's beauty in grief. There's a gift in it. It doesn't always feel that way. It doesn't mean that things that happen, and those things we have to be thankful for. It means that when there's a grief having a home demolished and it never be the same. There'll be a tall and skinny, and the people that lived there for years will never know my grandparents and never know the magic that happened on that land. Never. However, there's such a gift knowing that that home existed. And we all have the ability to tap into that. Right. There's a gift in those boxes that you've got of your dad's.
There's a gift.
And when you're ready,
Yeah. And that's what I encourage everybody. Let's open the box. Oh, Rhonda is with us today. Butterflies are a sign of a new beginning. Yes. And I know Teri uses her some butterflies too.
I did. Well, and the other thing about the dandelions is they have a tap root on them. So they have a root that actually goes down like a turnip or a carrot. And from that root, there are little feelers that go off into the ground. And so also with grief, you can just mow it over. But if you don't get rid of it, then, get rid of the root, then you still got the problem.
I always like the strength of a dandelion to populate everywhere. And there's, for me, that's the thing that it's so delicate and so tiny, but it will literally grow out of concrete.
Absolutely.
And so that's the thing that I want you guys to have in your spirit this week as you go forward, is to know that even if you are feeling pretty delicate, you have a strength that you have not connected to yet. And there's always more to connect to. There's always more strength. That's it. That's the well that never runs dry, because that's who we are as human beings.
Absolutely.
Well, you guys have a great rest of your day. Teri, you want to send us home?
I do. I do. I
That was
don't even
nice.
know where that came from. I just was overcome with that real quick.
Oh, and Linda, before we get out of here, Linda Styles Cruiser. Hi, Linda. Glad you were joining us
Hi,
today.
everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you so much. We appreciate your comments, you sharing, and just spending your time with us. Even if you don't comment, you don't say anything, we appreciate you just choosing to spend time with us, because we value you and we appreciate you. And until we see you next Wednesday, increase the peace.